Chris, go and stand up for me. I'm going to have you face that wall over there. Yeah, just face it. Lift up your hands. Okay, go and face this wall. Okay, go and face me. Okay, you don't have anything on you, right? Okay, nothing in your pockets? Okay, go and face that other wall behind you. I'm just going to search you real quick. Spread your legs. Further. Okay, turn around and face me. No earrings, necklaces, anything like that? Okay. Let's walk out this way. Go straight. Go out that door to your left. Your seat.
August 13th, 2018, 5:27 a.m. in Frederick, Colorado. The quiet of a suburban street was shattered by a frantic call to police. A friend reported that Shannon Watts, 34 years old and 15 weeks pregnant, had not shown up for a scheduled appointment. Her car sat in the driveway, her purse and phone left behind. But Shannon and her two little girls, Bella and Celeste, were gone. By mid-morning, patrol officers moved through the Watts' two-story home on Saratoga Trail. Nothing seemed forced, nothing appeared stolen, and yet the silence inside those walls felt unbearable. Children's toys rested where they'd last been played with. The kitchen, spotless. Upstairs, the unmade bed of a woman who never missed an obligation. The house held no answers, only questions that grew heavier by the minute. By 2 p.m., news crews gathered outside, cameras rolling as Chris Watts, Shannon's husband, stepped into the spotlight. His voice was calm, almost rehearsed, as he pleaded for his family's safe return. Behind him, neighbors exchanged glances, trying to reconcile the picture-perfect image of a family they thought they knew with the chilling reality now unfolding. What had happened between midnight and dawn inside the Watts home? Why would a mother vanish without her car, her phone, or her daughter's favorite blankets? And how could a husband stand before the cameras, asking for help, while hiding the truth of what really happened? This is the story of Chris Watts and Nichol Kessinger, a story of lies, betrayal, and a family tragedy that left America asking one haunting question: how does love turn into murder? Chris Watts and Shannon Razusek married on November 3, 2012, in Charlotte, North Carolina. To friends and family, they seemed like a couple ready to face the world together. Shannon had overcome health challenges in her early 20s, including a diagnosis of lupus, and she often said that meeting Chris was one of the best things that had ever happened to her. He was soft-spoken and steady, the kind of man who never raised his voice and rarely showed frustration. She was outgoing, ambitious, and full of energy, her personality filling the spaces his quietness left. In 2013, the couple welcomed their first daughter, Bella Marie, a brown-eyed toddler who quickly became the center of Shannon's world. Just 2 years later, in 2015, their second daughter, Celeste Cece Catherine, was born. With 2 little girls to raise, the Watts family moved into a 5-bedroom home on Saratoga Trail in Frederick, Colorado, a quiet suburb about 30 miles north of Denver. It was the kind of neighborhood where children rode bicycles on sidewalks, neighbors waved as they watered their lawns, and safety, seemed like a given. Chris worked as an operator at Anadarko Petroleum, a steady job in the oil and gas industry. Shannon, meanwhile, built her career with Louvel Thrive, a health and wellness company. She thrived in front of the camera, posting frequent videos on Facebook where she shared her journey as a mom, her passion for the product, and her gratitude for the life she was building. Those videos became windows into the family's world, showing Chris playing with the girls, bedtime routines filled with giggles, and family celebrations that radiated love and togetherness. On social media, the Watts family looked like the definition of success. Shannon posted clips of Bella singing nursery rhymes, Cece running across the living room, and Chris lifting his daughters in his arms after long workdays. She often referred to him publicly as the best dad and the best husband, praising his role in their growing family. By early 2018, Shannon announced another blessing. She was pregnant with their third child, a boy they planned to name Nichol Watts. The reveal came in June, with Shannon wearing a shirt that read, "Oops, we did it again." Chris's reaction, captured on video, appeared subdued, but Shannon's excitement overflowed as she shared the news with friends and followers. But behind the bright smiles and carefully curated videos, the family carried burdens that few knew about. Financial records showed that in 2015, Chris and Shannon filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, citing nearly $450,000 in debt. Medical expenses, student loans, and credit card bills weighed heavily on the household. Even as Shannon worked hard to increase her sales with Thrive, and Chris continued his steady employment, the pressure of bills and expenses lingered quietly in the background. The couple's marriage also carried subtle strains. Shannon's friends later recalled that she often confided about feeling like she was holding the family together on her own. She was determined to make their life work, traveling frequently for her job, organizing her daughter's medical appointments. Both Bella and Cece had health complications that required attention, and still maintaining her social media presence. Chris, by contrast, seemed to grow quieter as the years passed. Where Shannon was vibrant and expressive, he remained reserved, offering few words and rarely sharing what was on his mind. Their neighbors saw a family that looked happy and close-knit. But in private, Shannon sometimes felt that Chris was slipping away. While she continued to call him her rock online, she told close friends that he was no longer the same man she had married. The distance was subtle, an averted glance, a lack of affection, a silence that seemed to stretch just a little too long. Still, Shannon believed in fighting for her family, reminding herself of the vows she had made and the life they had built. By the summer of 2018, with a third child on the way, Shannon pushed forward with optimism. She shared her pregnancy journey online, celebrated her daughter's milestones, and planned for the future she believed was still within reach. But beneath the surface of the smiling family photos, there were cracks that no filter could conceal: financial stress, emotional distance, and the quiet erosion of trust. The Watts family presented themselves as perfect. Yet perfection, when polished too brightly, can sometimes hide the fractures that threaten to break everything apart. In June 2018, at Anadarko Petroleum's office in Platteville, Colorado, Chris Watts met Nichol Kessinger. Nichol, then 30, worked as an environmental safety contractor. Their first interactions were brief and professional. But Nichol later told investigators that one day Chris came to her office and struck up a personal conversation. He mentioned he had 2 daughters and claimed he was at the end of his marriage. That detail, she said, made her view him differently. By the second week of June, their relationship moved beyond work. They exchanged phone numbers and began talking outside the office. Records later recovered by investigators show that from late June through mid-August, Chris and Nichol exchanged more than 1,400 calls and texts. Their conversations grew personal and intimate, moving quickly from casual chats to discussions about building a new life. While Shannon was away in North Carolina for most of July visiting family with Bella and Celeste, Chris remained in Colorado and spent increasing amounts of time with Nichol. On July 4, 2018, he told Shannon he needed to stay home for work. In reality, he spent part of the holiday week with Nichol. They went to restaurants, worked out together, and spent evenings at her apartment. On July 14th, the pair visited the Shelby American Collection Museum in Boulder. Nichol took photographs of Chris that police later recovered from her phone. To her, They were mementos of a budding romance. To detectives, they were timestamps showing how fast the affair had developed. During that same July, Shannon began noticing a change. From North Carolina, she sent Chris worried messages. In one text to a friend, she wrote, "He's cold. He's not the Chris I know." In another message, she asked him directly, "If you're done, just say it. I can handle the truth." Chris avoided direct answers, but his behavior made her feel something was wrong. As the weeks went on, the communications between Chris and Nichol intensified. Some phone calls lasted more than an hour. Others were made multiple times a day. They searched the internet for vacation getaways. Investigators later found that Nichol looked up wedding dresses and relationship advice during this period. When asked by the FBI, she said these were idle searches, not plans. Chris fed the illusion by telling Nichol that he and Shannon were separated and moving toward divorce. Nichol told investigators she believed him. She said she never asked him to leave his wife, and she insisted she did not know Shannon was pregnant until after the case became public. In her FBI interview, she described feeling stupid and used when she later learned the truth. When Shannon and the girls returned to Colorado on August 4, 2018, the tension in the marriage was obvious. She texted a friend that Chris refused to touch her and seemed completely detached. At the same time, Chris continued speaking to Nichol constantly. Records show that between August 4th and August 12th, the two were still calling and texting late into the night. On August 11th, Chris spent time with Nichol while Shannon was away on a business trip to Arizona. Their phone calls that day and into the night lasted nearly 2 hours. The next day, August 12th, they spoke for over an hour again, ending their final call just before Shannon's flight home landed in Denver. Nichol would later tell investigators that she ended contact with Chris immediately after learning Shannon and the children were missing. She gave the FBI full access to her phone, including her call logs, messages, and search history. Investigators confirmed she deleted some messages before turning her phone over, but she explained she did so out of fear for her privacy, not to conceal evidence. The records, however, were clear. From June through August 2018, Chris Watts and Nichol Kessinger carried on a secret relationship that escalated with astonishing speed. They spoke constantly. They saw each other regularly. And in those final weeks, while Shannon was pleading with her husband to tell her what was wrong, Chris was telling another woman that his marriage was already over. By the night of August 12, 2018, Chris's double life was at its peak. His last call with Nichol ended only minutes before Shannon returned home from her trip. Hours later, she and her daughters would vanish. And for investigators, the affair became a crucial piece of evidence, a window into the hidden life of a man who presented himself to the world as a devoted father, while secretly planning to erase the very family he once vowed to protect. On August 7, 2018, Shannon Watts flew from Colorado to Scottsdale, Arizona, for a Thrive business trip. Bella and Celeste stayed at home in Frederick with Chris. During this trip, Shannon continued texting Chris, telling him she felt something had changed in their marriage. In one message, she wrote, "You're not the man I married." 2 days later, on August 9th, Shannon sent Chris another message that reflected her growing fear. "I don't know how you fell out of love with me in 5.5 weeks, or if this has been going on longer, but I hope you find your happiness. I deserve the same." Chris's response was minimal. That same evening, phone records show he spoke with Nichol Kessinger for over an hour. On August 10th, Shannon confided in her friend Nicole Atkinson that Chris was being distant and that intimacy between them had disappeared. Shannon told Nichol she felt something was very wrong. At the same time, Chris's phone records show ongoing calls and texts with Nichol throughout the day. On August 11th, Shannon texted Chris, "I keep trying to talk, and I can't get anything out of you. You're not the same. I miss the man I used to know." That night, Chris went out with Nichol. Phone logs later confirmed he spoke to her on the phone for nearly 2 hours that evening. The next day, August 12th, Shannon prepared to return home from her trip. She again messaged Chris about how disconnected he seemed. She told a friend, "Something is wrong. He doesn't touch me. He doesn't talk to me." That evening, Chris and Nichol spoke for over an hour on the phone. Their call ended just before Shannon's flight landed in Denver close to midnight. At 1:48 a.m. on August 13th, Nicole Atkinson dropped Shannon off at her home on Saratoga Trail after picking her up from the airport. Surveillance footage from a neighbor's camera later confirmed Shannon arriving with her suitcase. This was the last time she was seen alive outside her family home. At 1:48 a.m. on August 13, 2018, a neighbor's security camera recorded Shannon what's being dropped off at her home on Saratoga Trail by her friend, Nichol Kessinger. Shannon had just returned from a Thrive business trip to Arizona. Surveillance showed her walking toward the front door with her suitcase. This was the last confirmed sighting of Shannon alive outside her home. Later, in his first interview with police, Chris Watts said that he and Shannon had a conversation after she returned. He told investigators that Shannon confronted him about their marriage, and he claimed he told her he wanted a separation. According to Chris, she became emotional, they argued, and then he said she went to bed. This was the version of events he repeated to officers and reporters during the first days of the investigation. That morning, Shannon missed her 10 a.m. OB/GYN appointment. She was 15 weeks pregnant with their son, Nico Lee, and had never missed a checkup before. She also stopped responding to text messages and phone calls. Her friend Nichol quickly became concerned. By 12:10 p.m., Nichol drove to the Watts house. She saw Shannon's white Lexus SUV still in the garage. Looking through the windows, she noticed Shannon's purse inside. It contained her wallet, keys, and medication. Nichol rang the doorbell and knocked several times, but no one answered. She called Chris, who told her Shannon had said she was taking the girls to a friend's house. Nichol did not believe it. Knowing Shannon's habits, she insisted something was wrong. At 1:40 p.m., she called 911. Frederick police responded to the call. When officers arrived, they also saw Shannon's vehicle in the garage and noted her purse inside the house. They contacted Chris and asked him to come home. He arrived shortly after, let them in, and walked them through the house. Inside, officers found Shannon's phone on the couch and her wedding ring on a nightstand. These discoveries were considered unusual because Shannon was known to keep her phone with her at all times and rarely removed her ring. Officers also noted that no bags were packed and no signs suggested she had left voluntarily. During the visit, a neighbor, Nate Stick, showed police footage from his security camera. The video confirmed Shannon's arrival in the early hours of August 13th. It also showed Chris at 5:27 a.m., backing his truck into the driveway and later driving away. The camera did not capture Shannon leaving the house. That afternoon, Chris gave interviews to local news outlets. Standing outside his home, he spoke calmly into cameras, saying, "If you're out there, just come back. If somebody has her, just bring her back. I need to see everybody again." Reporters and neighbors noticed his composed demeanor. Some described it as oddly detached for a man whose pregnant wife and 2 daughters were missing. By the end of August 13th, the situation had escalated into a missing persons investigation. Police documented the evidence. Shannon's car still at home, her purse left behind, her medication untouched, her phone abandoned, and her wedding ring removed. None of it aligned with the idea that she had chosen to leave on her own. One fact was already undeniable. Shannon had been seen entering the house in the early hours of August 13th. No evidence showed she ever came back out. On August 13th, 2018, at approximately 1:48 a.m., Shannon Watts was dropped off at her home on Saratoga Trail by her friend, Nichol Kessinger. Surveillance from a neighbor's security camera captured her walking to the front door with her suitcase. This was the last confirmed sighting of Shannon outside her home. Later that morning, Shannon missed a 10 a.m. OB/GYN appointment. She was 15 weeks pregnant and had never missed a scheduled checkup. She also stopped answering calls and texts from friends and family. By 12:10 p.m., Nichol drove to the Watts residence. She saw Shannon's white Lexus SUV parked in the garage. Through the windows, she noticed Shannon's purse inside the house, which contained her wallet and medication. When Shannon still did not respond, Nichol called police for a welfare check. At approximately 1:50 p.m., Officer Scott Coonrod of the Frederick Police Department arrived. His body-worn camera recorded the encounter. The footage shows Nichol outside the home, explaining her concerns and pointing to the Lexus. Officer Coonrod knocked on the front door and rang the doorbell several times, but there was no answer. Coonrod contacted Chris by phone. Chris said Shannon had told him she was taking the children to a friend's house. The officer requested that Chris return home. When Chris arrived a short time later, he unlocked the door and allowed entry. Inside, Officer Coonrod's body cam documented Shanann's cell phone found in the couch cushions, her purse on a chair, and her wedding ring on a nightstand upstairs. There were no signs of forced entry, and no bags appeared packed. During the welfare check, neighbor Nate Trinistick offered footage from his security camera. The recording showed Shannon arriving home at 1:48 a.m. and, later, Chris at 5:27 a.m. backing his work truck into the driveway. The camera captured him loading the vehicle before leaving for work. The video did not show Shannon or the children leaving the house. After viewing the footage, Nate told Officer Coonrod that Chris's behavior seemed unusual. That same evening, Chris spoke to local television stations outside his home. In his interview with Denver 7, he said, "If you're out there, just come back. If somebody has her, just bring her back. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here." His calm demeanor during the interviews drew attention. By the end of August 13th, law enforcement documented the following evidence. Shanann's car remained at home. Her purse, wallet, and medication were inside the house. Her cell phone was left behind. Her wedding ring was removed and placed on a nightstand. Surveillance confirmed Shannon entered the house but did not show her leaving. The case was formally treated as a missing persons investigation, and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and FBI were contacted for assistance. On August 14, 2018, detectives brought Chris Watts back to the Frederick Police Department for questioning. The missing persons case had grown darker with every passing hour. Shanann's phone, purse, wedding ring, and car were still at home, yet Chris insisted she had left the house alive. His calmness unsettled investigators, but calmness alone was not evidence. They needed something concrete. The first interviews followed a predictable rhythm. Chris repeated his story. He and Shannon argued the night she returned from Arizona. He told her he wanted a separation, and she said she was taking the girls to a friend's house. He denied having an affair. He said he had no idea where Shannon or the children were. His words were steady, but his eyes avoided direct contact. Detectives listened, noting the gaps. They knew from Shanann's texts, from phone records, and from the neighbor's camera that the pieces did not fit. On August 15th, the strategy shifted. Special Agent Tammy Lee of the Colorado Bureau of Investigation offered Chris a chance to take a polygraph test. He agreed without hesitation, confident he could maintain his story. In the sterile interview room, sensors were attached to his body, recording his breathing, pulse, and skin response. Agent Lee asked clear, direct questions. Did you physically cause Shanann's disappearance? Are you lying about the last time you saw Shannon? Do you know where Shannon is now? Chris answered no to each. When the test ended, Tammy Lee returned with the results. Her tone was blunt. "Chris, you did not pass the polygraph." She leaned in, her voice steady but firm. "This is the moment to be honest. Right now, we need the truth." Chris shifted in his chair, his composure beginning to unravel. Detectives Tammy Lee, Graham Coder, and Dave Baumhover pressed harder. They explained that his story made no sense. They told him Shannon would never have left her purse, her phone, or her medication behind. They reminded him that the camera showed Shannon arriving at 1:48 a.m. but never leaving. They told him the polygraph proved deception. Then they offered him a scenario. They suggested that maybe Shannon had done something to the children and that he reacted in anger. It was a technique investigators sometimes used, giving a suspect a version of events they might cling to as a way of easing into confession. Chris shook his head, denying at first, but his silence lengthened. Finally, he asked for his father. Investigators brought Ronnie Watts into the room. Chris leaned close to him, his voice low. On the recording, he can be heard saying, She hurt the girls. And then I killed her." His father looked stunned, but he urged his son to tell the truth. When detectives re-entered the room, Chris repeated his new account. He claimed that after he told Shannon he wanted to separate, she became angry and strangled their daughters, Bella and Celeste. He said he reacted in a rage, strangling Shannon. He admitted to loading Shanann's body and the children into his truck the next morning and driving them to a remote Anadarko petroleum site. There, he said, he buried Shannon in a shallow grave and placed the girls' bodies in separate oil tanks. Detectives listened but did not believe his claim that Shannon had killed the children. They knew her history, her devotion to Bella and Celeste, and the texts she had sent to friends in her final days. Still, Chris had crossed a critical line. For the first time, he admitted to killing Sean Ann, and he revealed the location of the bodies. That revelation changed everything. The atmosphere in the room was heavy as detectives pressed him for details. They asked how he had carried the bodies to the truck, what time he left, and exactly where at the site he left them. Chris described the oil field near Rogan, Colorado, where he worked. He said he dug a shallow grave for Sean Ann and used separate hatches on the oil tanks for Bella and Celeste. His voice was quiet, his tone flat, but his words carried devastating weight. The confession was partial, distorted, and self-serving, but it was enough to mobilize law enforcement. Detectives had the location. They had his admission. And now, they had the chance to recover Sean Ann, Bella, and Celeste from the oil site. By the evening of August 15, 2018, the investigation had shifted from a search for missing persons to the recovery of murder victims. Chris Watts was no longer the worried husband on television. He was a confessed killer, caught in his own lies, and investigators were preparing to follow his words to the oil field where he said his family lay. On the evening of August 15, 2018, after failing a polygraph test and speaking privately with his father, Chris Watts admitted to detectives that he had killed Sean Ann and disposed of the bodies of his family at one of his work sites. He identified the location as an Anadarko petroleum oil site called Survey 319 near Rogan, Colorado. That night, the Frederick Police Department, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, CBI, and the FBI obtained search warrants and secured the site. On the morning of August 16, 2018, investigators, cadaver dogs, and crime scene technicians arrived at Survey 319. The area was searched, and the dogs alerted near oil tanks and disturbed soil. A shallow grave was located near the oil battery, where the body of Sean Ann Watts was recovered. She was still carrying her unborn son, Nico. 2 oil storage tanks were inspected. Inside, the remains of Bella Watts, age 4, and Celeste Watts, age 3, were recovered. The bodies were transported to the Weld County Coroner's Office. That same day, Weld County District Attorney Michael Rourke confirmed in a press release that 3 bodies believed to be Sean Ann, Bella, and Celeste had been found at a work site belonging to Anadarko Petroleum, where Chris was employed. Sean Ann's family in North Carolina, Frank and Sandra Razusek, were notified of the recovery by law enforcement. They later issued public statements thanking police for their efforts and expressing devastation at the loss of Sean Ann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. With the discovery at Survey 319, the missing persons case officially became a homicide investigation. Chris Watts was formally arrested on August 15, 2018, and held without bond at the Weld County Jail. On August 21, 2018, the Weld County District Attorney's Office formally charged Christopher Lee Watts with 9 felony counts. 5 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of unlawful termination of a pregnancy, 3 counts of tampering with a deceased human body. Each murder charge carried a possible life sentence or the death penalty. On November 6, 2018, Chris Watts pled guilty to all 9 counts in Weld County District Court. The plea agreement removed the death penalty from consideration. District Attorney Michael Rourke stated that the decision was supported by Sean Ann Watts' family, who did not want to pursue capital punishment. The guilty plea was entered before Judge Marcelo Kopkow. Watts answered guilty to each charge as they were read. On November 19, 2018, the sentencing hearing was held. District Attorney Rourke told the court, "The defendant has pled guilty to murdering his wife and 2 children and their unborn child. This is the most inhumane and vicious crime I have handled out of the thousands of cases I have seen." During the hearing, members of Sean Ann's family gave victim impact statements. Frank Razusek Sr. said, "Sean Ann was deeply in love with you, Chris. You were her hero. I will never understand how you became the man that you did." He asked the court to impose the maximum sentence. Sandra Razusek said, "I trusted you to take care of her. I trusted you to take care of the children. You took her away from me. I will never, ever forgive you. I will never, ever forget what you did to my family." Frankie Razusek Jr. said, "I watched my parents' lives fall apart. You destroyed everything. You were supposed to protect them, but instead you took their lives." Chris Watts declined to make a statement. Judge Kopkow addressed the court. "The defendant deserves a maximum sentence the law allows for each of these crimes. The defendant has committed a crime against the state of Colorado, against his wife, against his children, and against his unborn child. He sentenced Chris Watts to life imprisonment without parole for the murder of Sean N. Life imprisonment without parole for the murder of Bella. Life imprisonment without parole for the murder of Celeste. 2 additional life sentences under Colorado's statute for victims under 12. 48 years for unlawful termination of a pregnancy. 36 years each for 3 counts of tampering with a deceased human body. The sentences were ordered to run consecutively. Chris Watts received 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus 84 additional years. He was immediately remanded to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections. After his sentencing in November 2018, Chris Watts was placed in protective custody within the Colorado Department of Corrections. On December 3, 2018, he was transferred under the Interstate Corrections Compact to Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin, due to security concerns. Dodge is a maximum security facility. Officials confirmed he was housed in protective custody. In February 2019, agents from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, CBI, the FBI, and the Wisconsin Department of Corrections conducted a prison interview with Watts. The interview lasted nearly 5 hours. In it, Watts admitted that his earlier claim, that Sean N. had killed the children, was false. He confessed that he had killed Sean N., Bella, and Celeste himself. Watts told investigators that on the morning of August 13, 2018, after Sean N. returned from her business trip, he strangled her in their bedroom. He said he then loaded Shanann's body and his daughters, who were still alive, into his truck and drove them to Survey 319, the Anadarko Petroleum Works site. There, he buried Sean N. in a shallow grave and placed Bella and Celeste into separate oil tanks. In the interview, Watts stated that Bella's last words were, "Daddy, no." The CBI released the interview audio and transcript publicly in March 2019. The same year, Shanann's family, Frank and Sandra Rzusek and Frankie Rzusek Jr., filed a wrongful death civil suit against Watts. A Colorado judge entered a $6 million judgment in their favor, ensuring Watts could not profit from the case through book or media deals. Nichol Kessinger, who met Watts in June 2018 while working as a contractor for Anadarko, gave multiple interviews to CBI and FBI investigators in August 2018. She provided her phone records and Google search history, which included searches in July 2018 for phrases such as "marrying your mistress" and "man I'm having an affair with says he will leave his wife." She told investigators she believed Watts's marriage was ending and denied any knowledge of his plans. Discovery documents confirmed she cooperated fully. After the case became public, Kessinger faced heavy media scrutiny. In 2019, she filed a petition to legally change her name, citing concerns for her safety. She has not been seen publicly since, and law enforcement confirmed she was never charged with any crime. The case continued to receive national and international media coverage. In September 2020, Netflix released American Murder: The Family Next Door, which used police body cam footage, text messages, and social media posts to tell the story. The documentary became one of Netflix's most-watched true crime films. As of today, Chris Watts remains incarcerated at Dodge Correctional Institution, serving 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus 84 additional years. After the murders of Sean N. Watts, Bella Watts, Celeste Watts, and unborn Nico Watts in August 2018, their family and community continued to speak publicly about the case. At the sentencing hearing in November 2018, Shanann's parents and brother gave victim impact statements. Frank Rzusek Sr. said, "Sean N. was deeply in love with you, Chris. You were her hero. I will never understand how you became the man that you did." Sandra Rzusek told the court, "I trusted you to take care of her. I trusted you to take care of the children. You took her away from me. I will never forgive you." Frankie Rzusek Jr. said, "I watched my parents' lives fall apart. I lost my sister. I lost my nieces. And I lost Nico. You were supposed to protect them, but instead you took everything from us." In 2019, the Rzuseks filed a wrongful death civil suit against Chris Watts. A Colorado judge awarded them a $6 million judgment, intended to prevent Watts from profiting from the case. That same year, investigators released a 5-hour prison interview with Chris Watts. In it, he admitted his earlier story about Sean and harming the children was false. He confessed to killing Sean and Bella and Celeste himself and confirmed that Bella's last words were, "Daddy, no." The case continued to receive global media coverage. In September 2020, Netflix released American Murder: The Family Next Door, a documentary using Shanann's social media posts, police bodycam footage, and interrogation recordings. It became one of the platform's most watched true crime films. Domestic violence experts have cited the Watts murders as an example of family annihilation, a rare but documented form of intimate partner violence. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, more than half of female homicide victims in the United States are killed by a current or former intimate partner. Shanann herself noted changes in her marriage in her final weeks. In texts recovered by investigators, she told friends that Chris was distant, that he no longer touched her, and that she felt something was wrong. On August 13, 2018, her friend Nichol Atkinson raised the alarm when Shanann missed a doctor's appointment and did not answer calls. Atkinson's decision to call police led directly to the welfare check that exposed Chris's lies. Chris Watts remains incarcerated at Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin, serving 5 life sentences without parole plus 84 years. He will never be released. The Rzusek family continues to speak publicly about Shanann and the children, urging the public to remember them with love. Frank Rzusek said in 2019, "We loved Shanann. We loved Bella and Celeste. And we loved baby Nico. We will never stop loving them."